we know that these facilities are in horrific condition. We're getting reports all across the country, not just there in Florida, but all across the country, that essentially people inside have no access to any sort of legal advice. In some cases, food and water. The conditions are terrible. And we know also that a lot of folks that are being sent to these places have no criminal record. 60% of the people being detained have never been convicted of anything. And so this now has become essentially Donald Trump's warped vision of his own personal police force and his own personal jails, where he can throw whoever he wants in them, including people who don't agree with him. And it's incredibly dangerous for our country.
Let's also take a look at your home turf back in Southern California, because you saw this week the clashes between protesters and officials. They turned pretty violent at two state-licensed cannabis farms where agents deployed tear gas against demonstrators. Those folks who arrived soon after about 100 farm workers were reportedly arrested. Look, there's no indication the court rulings will effectively stop ICE from conducting these aggressive raids in workplaces, in courthouses, in homes. Where is all this going?
Look, I think what's clear, I think, is that Donald Trump wants to put and is committed and obsessed, him and Stephen Miller, with doing whatever they can to take people off the street they don't agree with, that doesn't look like them and their supporters, that they feel essentially are harming the country. We know these are immigrants. Most people here are law-abiding. And what this super charge of ICE actually does with all this new funding is it allows him to create this police force he's always wished he had. Look, we know that across the country, whether it's New York, Los Angeles, other big cities, police forces and police chiefs are saying, we're not going to do federal law enforcement. It's not our job. We want to focus on traffic tickets and on serious offenders and domestic violence. And because he can't control local law enforcement agencies in cities and states across our country, he's creating his own. He's creating his own force that he can actually essentially send masked, by the way, so we don't know who these people are, and creating chaos and havoc across the country. We should expect that his efforts are only going to get worse and are only going to terrorize more people. And here in California, he has created more terror. Los Angeles, that whole incident, he essentially created by bringing in ICE and the military and the National Guard. We know that most of these protests have been peaceful. And now he's raiding farms, raiding school campuses, going into small businesses, even places of worship. The American public, I hope, understands what he's doing.
Listen, there's a San Bernardino Catholic bishop who said, immigrants, don't come to church anymore because we're worried about this, that you're going to have ICE agents come and try to pull you out of the pews. Let's also talk about what you signed off on, which was the letters that were sent by fellow Democrats on the Oversight Committee. They're demanding details and documents from FEMA and others on the catastrophic Texas flooding response. NBC News confirmed reports that 2 days after the floods, FEMA laid off hundreds of contractors, didn't answer almost 2/3 of calls to its disaster assistance line. It's also been slow to activate search and rescue efforts. What information are you looking for? And being in the minority, are you going to get answers?
Well, we've launched a series of investigations on the Texas floods. And look, it's a horrific, obviously, what's happened. And just this whole thing breaks, I think, all of our hearts. I mean, we obviously know that there's a lot of young people and folks that are still unaccounted for. So it is still a tragedy. At the same time, we have to ask the tough questions. We know that DOJ went and cut FEMA. We know that Donald Trump has tried to essentially say that FEMA and its resources should in large part be given to the states. We also know that Kristi Noem didn't deploy all of her resources that she had at her disposal immediately. And instead, she set up some sort of system where she has to approve certain levels of deployment over certain amounts of money, over $100,000. And at the same time, we know that there have been cuts so drastic where people aren't picking up the phone actually at FEMA right now. And so all of these issues need to be investigated, which we've launched. And there are some serious questions here as to how much Donald Trump already and Elon Musk and Kristi Noem have already damaged FEMA to a point where it can't actually respond to major disasters. We cannot just leave it to the states. The states have an important role, as do local law enforcement. But the federal government has a role in national disasters. When you have over 100 dead and 100 other missing, like we have in Texas, This is a job for the federal government, and right now it looks very clear that we're not equipped to do what we need to do. And that is both really sad and should infuriate us at the same time.
I think there's actually about 160 still missing. The numbers are even worse. Can I ask you quickly, is there someone that you will want to investigate if Democrats win in the midterms, given your position now on the Oversight Committee? Who's first for you? Just real quick.
Well, look, I think first has to be Donald Trump and his family. They're the biggest grifters, con people in the history of modern American politics, and the fact they're selling the White House